Episode 51. Dealing with the matter. As soon as Bridger Davenport's words ended, a figure flew out from behind him. In an instant, the entire warehouse was enveloped in endless chill. Be careful the moment Noah Miller made his move. Aaron Jackson also reacted. He dashed forward several steps and leapt high into the air. Being a martial artist himself, Aaron Jackson sensed the wrongness in Noah Miller. That kind of killing intent wasn't something a normal old man should possess. Although it was heavily concealed, it couldn't escape the eyes of Julius Reed and Aaron Jackson. Bang! Their fists collided violently in midair, and then each took a step back. I have long heard of Aaron Jackson's prowess in both the literary and martial arts, and seeing you today, your reputation is indeed well deserved. Noah Miller squinted his eyes, praising loudly. Aren't you supposed to be weak as a chicken? That punch you threw just now could probably kill a strong ox. Couldn't it? Aaron Jackson's face was frosty, with a strong will to fight emanating from his entire being. That exchange just now didn't give either an advantage. It could be said to be an even match, but if the fight continued, the outcome was hard to predict. Manager Cook, is this what you call keeping your word, seeing that the other party couldn't help but make a move? Julius Reed chuckled lightly. If you're dead, who can prove I ever said that? Jared Cook's eyes were filled with coldness. We're all in the same business. You should understand this principle. Blame only yourself for being too naive to believe such words. You expect to live up to crippling my men with Noah Miller here. They felt very confident about this affair, so they no longer bothered to disguise their intentions. Oh, luckily, I kept a trick up my sleeve. It seems Manager Cook is not a man of his word after all. Julius Reed's lips curled into a smile as he pointed at Sunny Ridge and said, you might want to check if this brother of yours is still alive. Upon hearing this, Jared Cook couldn't help but frown. When they had let go of Sunny Ridge, everything seemed natural. What could the other party have done in such a short period? He's dead. As soon as Bridger Davenport heard those words, he instinctively placed his hand under Sunny Ridge's nose. He had felt something off before, and now he realized Sunny Ridge was indeed dead. What? Jared Cook and Noah Miller exclaimed in unison. Shock was written all over both of their faces. In such a short span, the other party had silently killed Sunny Ridge, and they hadn't noticed at all. It seems, Aaron Jackson has found himself a capable ally. But what of it? In my presence, it's just one more person to kill. Had Sunny Ridge not died, I might have shown mercy, but now, you've crossed the line. Noah Miller felt Sunny Ridge's body and confirmed he was indeed dead through and through. I want you to bury my brother with him as the manager of Gonzales City. Having the deputy manager die in front of him was undoubtedly a humiliation. Master Miller, leave alive one. I want to torment him bit by bit. Jared Cook's eyes conveyed boundless hatred, as if wanting to devour Julius Reed alive. Consider it done. As he spoke, Noah Miller shot forward, charging directly at Julius Reed. Dealing with Aaron Jackson was tricky, so he decided to deal with the seemingly less capable man first. Capture the eagle. Seeing Noah Miller take action, Bridger Davenport's eyes narrowed into slits. Who would have thought that old Miller would use a lethal move from the start? Today, we shall feast our eyes. I've also heard a bit about old Miller's eagle claw hand. Aaron Jackson is doomed today. Jared Cook was just as excited on the side, because Noah Miller's eagle claw hand was practically a legend within the Three Blade Group. When Noah Miller joined the Three Blade Group, he was already approaching 50, and others only knew that he was agile, but never understood why Morris Yarrow spent a fortune to bring him on board. After all, there were many capable fighters within the Three Blade Group. Such a high salary naturally caused discontent among many of the group's brothers. Why should money go to an outsider? Could they really not match up to an old man? Thus, quite a few of the group's elite approached Morris Yarrow, requesting to match their skills against Noah Miller. Facing such provocations, Noah Miller gladly accepted the challenge, and chose the day of the 15th of August to take on 10 men by himself at a martial arts gym owned by the Three Blade Group. Many high-ranking members rushed to the scene, witnessing with their own eyes the spectacle of Noah Miller defeating 10 men single-handedly. To celebrate the acquisition of a master within the group, Morris Yarrow hosted a banquet that night at the High Heaven restaurant. At that banquet, fueled by alcohol, Noah Miller exhibited a secret technique, the eagle claw hand. A stone as tall as a man was smashed into pieces by a single swipe of his hand from the middle. Everyone present was amazed, and they also committed this secret technique to memory. The move that Noah Miller executed now was precisely the Eagle Claw hand, and judging from the strength, this technique was even more refined than 3 years ago, the power also greater than before. Swoosh. With a sharp whoosh through the air, Noah Miller's left hand had already shot forward in front of Julius Reed. The move was so fast that everyone failed to react to what had happened. Seeing this scene, Jared Cook couldn't help but applaud in admiration. So impressive. Bridger Davenport's eyes were also filled with fervent excitement, for he had seen Noah Miller in action before, but every time, the elder would bring him surprises. It seemed that nobody had ever pushed him to use his full strength. Now, he finally understood why Morris Yarrow was willing to splurge $1 billion a year on this seemingly frail elder. One man, equivalent to an army of thousands. Noah Miller pushed off the ground with his legs and leaped up, slamming down a palm over Julius Reed's head. This palm strike was even more powerful than before, so much so that even from a distance, the two by the warehouse entrance could feel the overwhelming murderous intent. It made breathing difficult. However, the man in question, Julius Reed, showed not the slightest panic. He stood his ground and met the Eagle Claw hand with a punch. A head-on clash. PFF. Noah Miller staggered back more than a dozen steps before falling to his knees, clutching his chest and coughing up a mouthful of blood, and his hands couldn't help but tremble. You actually managed to withstand my Eagle Claw hand. Impossible. Utterly impossible. His eyes were filled with disbelief. His treasured technique, developed time and again at the brink of death, had been neutralized so easily by the opponent and had even led to his defeat. Master Miller, are you okay? It was only then that Bridger Davenport and Jared Cook came to their senses. Both rushed over to Noah Miller, their faces full of shock. In their minds, Noah Miller had been an invincible figure, yet that young man in the distance had knocked him down with one blow, making him spit out blood. What kind of monster had they encountered? Thinking this, the two men felt chills down their spine. Get in! Noah Miller pushed the two men away, his face dark with anger. No one has ever left alive after crossing me, and you're no exception. Is that so? Looking at the injured Noah Miller, Julius Reed slightly raised the corner of his mouth. Now you can run away, and I'm guessing, you must have been a deserter before, right? Episode 52. Bridger Davenport's thoughts. Shut up. Upon hearing these two words, Noah Miller's pupils shrank violently, like a fierce tiger whose tail had been stepped on. He had fought in deserts and jungles abroad in his youth. His master was even a grand master known as Anthony the Viper. Under the hellish training of this master, he and several dozen fellow disciples joined Inferno, honing themselves through numerous real battles, and in the end, less than 10 survived. These remaining 10 could definitely be called aces. At that time, Inferno was highly renowned, and Noah Miller's future should have been bright, but the incident 20 years ago completely altered his life's trajectory. Perhaps due to youth or vanity clouding his judgment, he secretly took on a covert job behind his master's back. In that era, Anthony had absolute authority within Inferno, taking 60% of any commission, and only the remaining 40% was distributed to the members. Even though each payout was substantial, the money was not much when divided among many. Moreover, anyone who sought out Inferno had a highly vexing issue at hand. Members had to be prepared for a possible eternal rest each time they went into battle. Full of youthful vigor, Noah Miller decided he would do this job and then leave Inferno to start his own faction. So, he quietly took on a covert job worth $1 billion, and together with a few of his Inferno brethren who were dissatisfied with Anthony, they set out to assassinate their target. The target was a tycoon with a net worth of tens of billions and immense local influence. Although they successfully assassinated the tycoon using their vast experience, they encountered fierce resistance during their retreat. At the critical moment, Noah Miller abandoned the safety of his colleagues and fled alone. The rest, with their backs exposed, were brutally killed by the tycoon's bodyguards. Subsequently, the tycoon's relatives issued a killing order, offering a hefty reward for Noah Miller's head. Inferno also began to cleanse their ranks of this deserting traitor. This incident, like an obsession, lodged in his heart for decades. To abandon his comrades and flee alone had become a joke. Today, having this wound reopened sent Noah Miller into an unstoppable rage. Julius Reed snorted lightly, clearly with disdain. The opponent's techniques were full of flaws, and he had countless ways to break through them. Old Miller, are you confident? Beside him, Bridger Davenport and Jared Cook were secretly sweating bullets, aware that they had truly hit a snag. Although they were unclear about when Aaron Jackson's subordinate had become such a formidable figure, anyone who gained Jackson's silent approval was certainly no ordinary person. But equally, Noah Miller had not yet gone all out. He had always held something back. This reservation, after being knocked back by a single kick from Julius Reed, was fully unleashed. Get lost. If you don't trust me, you can leave first. But this young man, I must kill him today. Every martial artist has an element of pride. Noah Miller was no exception. He felt that with Julius Reed being so young, even if he won, it wouldn't be honorable. Moreover, in the brief exchange they had just now, he was at a disadvantage. If he couldn't turn the tables, how would he continue to stand in the three-blade group? The $1 billion per year from Morris Yarrow was not so easy to obtain. Then please take care of it. Old Miller. Bridger Davenport nodded on the side, quietly stepping out from the warehouse, leaving only Jared Cook to watch the battle. As the brain of the three-blade group, Bridger Davenport had his own plans. He felt that the events of today were somewhat unexpected and could possibly pose a risk. Now that he had seen Julius Reed show his mettle, even seemingly aiming to suppress Noah Miller, he thought of going out to seek reinforcements. After all, joining forces would serve as an additional insurance for today's operation. Brother Davenport, why have you come out? Seeing Bridger Davenport emerge, the members of the three-blade group quickly inquired. They all knew of old Miller. He was an exceedingly formidable figure, with Noah Miller inside making a move and Bridger Davenport walking out from the warehouse. These people subconsciously thought that Aaron Jackson was dead. The person inside is tricky. Although old Miller says he is confident, I think it's doubtful. Having been acquainted with old Miller for years, I can tell at a glance whether he truly has confidence or not. With his hands clasped behind his back, Bridger Davenport thoughtfully said, when he acted in the past, he was always full of confidence. But today, I saw a moment of hesitation or perhaps fear in his eyes. Even though he didn't say it, his moves were obviously timid and shrinking. Noah Miller would only appear when carrying out top-secret missions or dealing with particularly thorny opponents, and these matters were usually orchestrated by Bridger Davenport, with Noah Miller taking action. The two had collaborated more than a dozen times, so Bridger Davenport felt he had some understanding of Noah Miller. In the recent skirmish, he had distinctly sensed that sliver of fear in Noah Miller's heart, slight as it was, yet still revealed to him. This made Bridger Davenport once again curious about Julius Reed, wondering what kind of freak this young man by Aaron Jackson's side was to make old man Miller the widow suffer a setback. What? Old Miller actually didn't have the upper hand in my memory. As long as old Miller made a move, it was absolutely certain. I never imagined that in this world, there would actually be an opponent old Miller took seriously. Brother Davenport, what do you want the brothers to do? The members of the three-blade group all knew Noah Miller, and within the group, they preferred to call him Old Man Miller the Widow, because Noah Miller was so formidable that the strongest member of the three-blade group couldn't even touch his clothes. Though their rank was not high and their chances of seeing Noah Miller were rare, this did not prevent him from becoming their idol. In their hearts, Noah Miller represented invincibility. Now, with their war god shaken, the members of the three-blade group were impatient to witness the showdown between the two. Wait for my signal outside, and once I blow the whistle, come in immediately, and don't bother with anything else. Just take Aaron Jackson and his group down. A cold light flashed in Bridger Davenport's eyes. The matter today had to be handled splendidly to Morris Yarrow's satisfaction. With this thought, he reiterated, not a single one should be left understood. The group members all clenched their fists in salute, filled with immense excitement. After finishing all this, Bridger Davenport turned around and went back into the warehouse. Meanwhile, inside the dilapidated warehouse, Noah Miller was engaged in a fierce battle with Julius Reed. Jared Cook, who was watching, was dumbfounded. This truly was a battle of gods. How's the fight going? Bridger Davenport whispered. Since you went out, old Miller has been repelled 4 times. Each time he's been injured more severely than the last. And, Jared Cook swallowed hard, his words coming out in fits and starts. And what? Bridger Davenport asked with a furrowed brow. He hated it when someone spoke in half sentences, but now was not a good time to get upset. And old Miller hasn't even touched his opponent's clothes, Jared Cook said with a trembling voice. And at that moment, Noah Miller was once again knocked down from the air. Episode 53. Ambush. Give up. You're no match for me. Julius Reed stood atop a dilapidated oil drum inside the warehouse, looking down imperiously. Noah Miller was indeed not bad. His methods were strong, but unfortunately, his opponent was Julius Reed. Against anyone else it might have been fine, but fighting against himself was simply humiliating. I don't have time to waste on you, but Morris Yarrow's ransom might just have to double in the midst of speaking. Julius Reed suddenly lunged forward, his hands reaching straight for Noah Miller's throat. He intended to make an example of him, to ensure that no one from the Three Blade Group dared to target him again. You're too arrogant. Noah Miller, after all, was an enforcer within the Three Blade Group, and now, seeing Julius Reed charging at him with such ferocity, he bellowed and rushed to meet the attack. Bang! With a violent collision, Noah Miller stepped back several paces, the fresh blood spewing uncontrollably from his mouth. But before he could think of what to do next, Julius Reed had already grabbed his neck with one hand and hoisted him up. The whole process was so fast that no one could react, and Noah Miller was already captured. Old Miller, Bridger Davenport began to shout, but felt his throat uncontrollably tighten and his body slightly tremble. If even Noah Miller was no match, what chance did they stand? It was a lost cause. Retreat. Jared Cook also recovered from the shock and turned to run. Everyone knew clearly that the operation had failed. The opponent was too strong. Aaron Jackson. Capture the two of them. Tell Morris Yarrow to bring $10 billion for their ransom. Having done all this, Julius Reed gave Aaron Jackson the order. For characters like Bridger Davenport and Jared Cook, they were very easy to deal with. Although Aaron Jackson wasn't as monstrously strong as Julius Reed, he was still far beyond what Jared Cook could handle. In less than 3 moves, the manager of the Gonzales City branch of the Three Blade Group, along with one of the group's strategists, Bridger Davenport, were both thrown onto chairs. Just like how Sunny Ridge had been previously, these two core members of the Three Blade Group were tied up tightly. I warn you, don't mess with me. There are people from the Three Blade Group outside the warehouse, Bridger Davenport said somberly. Even though he had been captured, he still felt quite confident. But at the same time, he was also worried, for Julius Reed was too dominant, instantly taking down Noah Miller. He was certainly not an easy person to deal with. If it really came to it, he must find a way to have the boss call out those two monstrous figures. Noah Miller was not the strongest in their group, but those two figures were harder to ask for. Aaron Jackson. This subordinate of yours is really impressive. Jared Cook looked at Julius Reed not far away, his heart overturning like a turbulent river. Having been in Gonzales City for so long and yet failing to understand the details of this arch-rival was a complete failure. If the operation had been successful, his low-level mistakes would have been conveniently hidden. But if they hadn't managed to kill Aaron Jackson, his responsibility would have been the greatest. After all, this was Gonzales City, Jared Cook's stomping grounds. As the manager of the Gonzales City branch, first his underlings were killed and then both he and Bridger Davenport were captured and bound. If Morris Yarrow were to find out about this, he would definitely explode in anger. Is there still something to discuss? Jared Cook asked calmly. After 3 years in Gonzales City, what do you think? Aaron Jackson laughed, slapping his face with a smack. Playing dirty with me? Think I'm a fool? If our strength wasn't so overwhelming today, I bet you would have taken our heads to claim your reward. Right? Aaron Jackson really couldn't muster any good feelings toward the Three Blade Group. What he hated most were those who schemed behind others' backs, treating everyone like fools, as if he were the smartest person in the world. Call your boss. Aaron Jackson was far from courteous, his tone as icy as winter itself. You really think the people outside the warehouse are just for show? We can all die together if it comes to that. Jared Cook was slapped across the face, and his heart immediately burned with rage. As a core member of the Three Blade Group, wherever he went, he was called brother with respect. But today, he was actually slapped by Aaron Jackson. Don't think you're secure. While Aaron Jackson and Jared Cook were talking, Bridger Davenport whistled softly, and instantly there was a commotion of footsteps from outside the warehouse. The members of the Three Blade Group had been impatiently waiting for this moment. So, when the sound of the whistle rang out, they rushed over in a frenzy. But when they ran into the warehouse, they were all dumbfounded. There lay Noah Miller on the ground, his face void of any color, with traces of blood still on the front of his clothes. Clearly, He had just gone through a tough battle and lost. They stood at the entrance to the warehouse, at a loss for a moment. Who was Noah Miller? He was their war god, their biggest trump card for this mission. But now that their trump card had been overturned, what was there left to play? Bridger Davenport and Jared Cook, meanwhile, were tied to chairs at the very back of the warehouse. In just this short amount of time, all the key members of the Three-Blade Group had become prisoners, and the rest didn't know what to do. With everyone captured, where should they go? Who should they obey? Beat them to death. This is an order. Do you hear me? Bridger Davenport bellowed with a stern face. He had reached his position today thanks to his superior intellect and a relentless ruthlessness. Even though he was in a dangerous situation, he still wouldn't compromise. In Bridger Davenport's view, Aaron Jackson's tying him up was nothing more than a wish for a safety net, allowing everyone in the warehouse to leave unharmed. But he just wouldn't let Aaron Jackson get his way, even adopting an attitude of mutual destruction. In Bridger Davenport's plan, once these people charged in madly, Aaron Jackson and company would surely panic. If they wanted to live, they would have to negotiate with him. At that moment, he would once again regain control of the situation. But what he didn't know was that the outside of the warehouse had already been ambushed. All were elites carefully selected by Aaron Jackson, facing death without fear. Quite the mindset you have. Julius Reed slowly walked up to Bridger Davenport and asked, "Do you think they will take the bait? Let's find out. If I die, none of you will live either. We might as well keep each other company in the netherworld," displaying a readiness to face death. Bridger Davenport shouted loudly at the Three-Blade Group members at the door, "Charge. This is an order." Charge. After a brief hesitation, the members of the Three-Blade Group surged forward. Crack. Witnessing this scene, Julius Reed kicked Bridger Davenport's leg, breaking it instantly. I'll kill you." The intense pain made Bridger Davenport's veins bulge out, his eyes filled with deep hatred. Seeing this, the members of the Three-Blade Group instinctively stopped in their tracks. Seizing the opportunity, Aaron Jackson walked up behind Bridger Davenport and took a small bamboo tube from the chair. Then, he lit it gently with a lighter. Whoosh! As a sharp whistling sound cut through the air, the bamboo tube shot out a dazzling firework. At the same time, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble slightly. What's going on? The members of the Three-Blade Group looked at each other, panic setting in their hearts. "We're surrounded." After a moment, a member who had been standing outside the warehouse ran in frantically, his eyes filled with fear. Episode 54. The shock. Jared Cook. Impossible. Upon hearing the words of the Three-Blade Group employee, Bridger Davenport's frown deepened. Although he was tied to a chair, he kept struggling as if he had forgotten that he just had a leg broken. "Before coming here, I had people watching this place the entire time. There's no way Aaron Jackson's men could have gotten here so quickly." Bridger Davenport couldn't believe it. But the approaching footsteps were getting louder and left no room for explanation. "Aaron Jackson." Your men feeling the vibrations underneath his feet. Jared Cook also turned his body and stared straight at Aaron Jackson. Before making a move, Bridger Davenport had specifically asked him to have someone stationed to keep a close watch on how many people Aaron Jackson brought. As the manager of Gonzales City, Jared Cook naturally did not dare to neglect this. So upon receiving the order, he arranged for people to guard the West Lake docks day and night, both overtly and covertly. They set up watch positions everywhere. Any small movement would immediately be reported to him and Bridger Davenport. But only now did they realize that Aaron Jackson had set an ambush long ago. "Manager Cook, we've been in Gonzales City together for 3 years, which makes us old acquaintances. But in these 3 years, we've had our share of secret battles. Tell me, when have you ever won against me?" Aaron Jackson shook his head and walked slowly in front of Jared Cook, speaking disdainfully. "To fight with me, you're simply not qualified." These words left no face for the branch manager. Even Bridger Davenport, upon hearing these words, couldn't help but frown. You Jared Cook, after all, was the manager of the Gonzales City branch and held a respected position within the Three-Blade Group. But now, being humiliated by Aaron Jackson in front of his employees, where could he put his face? Yet, he was absolutely powerless. After all, his life was in the other's hands. What could he do? "Come in. Take them all down." Aaron Jackson suddenly looked up and bellowed toward the warehouse entrance. The next moment, a swarm of people poured into the warehouse like a flood and started to fight without a word. with the Three-Blade Group leaderless, its members utterly unprepared. They quickly fell in the face of Aaron Jackson's men's relentless assault. 5 minutes later, the Three-Blade Group is in such a sorry state, and they dare to trouble me. Julius Reed stood with his hands in his pockets, looking down at the groaning Three-Blade Group members in front of him. All 100 plus men were knocked to the ground, each suffering injuries of varying degrees, and Aaron Jackson's subordinates, one after another, angrily gathered around, as if they wished they could kill all these men. Dare to scheme against their own boss? They must be tired of living. We certainly didn't trouble you. It was you who captured Sunny Ridge from the Three-Blade Group and caused a ruckus at Black Wind Bar. Surely you can't spout nonsense just because you outnumber us. Bridger Davenport was furious, but his tone remained neither servile nor overbearing. Although he did not know the relationship between this young man and Aaron Jackson, he was aware that Aaron Jackson might listen to him. His and Jared Cook's lives and fortunes were essentially in the young man's hands. After all, he was the one who defeated Noah Miller. Wherever he went, he was revered. Oh, I'm spouting nonsense. Julius Reed smiled faintly and walked up to Jared Cook. Manager Cook should be clear about this matter. Right, young man? If you're going to kill, just kill. No need to waste words on me here. Although I, Jared Cook, have fallen to this state, I won't be humiliated by you at will. We're strangers. What reason do I have to trouble you? After hearing Julius Reed's words, Jared Cook felt like his lungs were about to explode with anger. It was clearly the other party who had captured his subordinate and looted the cash. Late the same, they even sent a threatening message to Morris Yarrow, demanding the Three-Blade Group bring ransom money for the exchange of the hostage. It's true that the Three-Blade Group hadn't refrained from wrongdoing on normal days, but such blatant distortion of the truth was simply bullying. Manager Cook is well known for being brave and resolute within the Three-Blade Group. If he says he hasn't provoked you, then he hasn't provoked you. Upon hearing Jared Cook's words, Bridger Davenport spoke to Julius Reed in an icy tone. I had thought you were a gentleman, but today you have truly disappointed me. In his eyes, the so-called trouble Reed mentioned was merely an excuse for Aaron Jackson to take action against him. Though they were competitors, Davenport and his people still held a certain respect for Jackson. Jackson's decisive and upright actions were known to everyone. But what he hadn't anticipated was for Jackson to start a battle out of the blue, using such a clumsy pretext. Oh, you're still not convinced? Julius Reed turned to face Jared Cook and asked in a deep voice. Did you take a sum of money from the Brandon family to take care of someone for them? How did you know? Jared Cook was startled. This affair involved group secrets, known only to him and Ignacio Cook, not even to Sunny Ridge, who held the same position of vice manager. This deal went unreported to the Three-Blade Group. It was entirely his own initiative, and the Brandons' money did not need to be turned over. They could divide it among themselves on the spot. But if this were to leak, they would inevitably face punishment from the group. Therefore, Jared Cook consulted with Ignacio Cook. Sunny Ridge, in charge of Black Wind Bar, was never short of money, and he even coveted Cook's managerial position. However, Ignacio Cook was different. He was involved in the rougher side of the business, earning far less money. The two hit it off instantly, and Jared Cook decided to take on the job under his own authority. With that thought, Cook widened his eyes with disbelief and asked in a tone that could hardly believe, "Could it be that you?" The more he considered this possibility, the faster his heart raced. "Indeed, I am the person you're sent to kill." Julius Reed stood before him and said with a faint smile, "What a pity. You had the chance to make money but no chance to spend it." Where's Ignacio Cook? Jared Cook felt his mind go numb, and he was completely at a loss. Last night he had sent out quite a few people, but strangely, none of his men returned. Moreover, when he sent out a search party in Gonzales City, they couldn't find a single trace of them. Dead. Do you think he could have been a match for me? Julius Reed's casually spoken words left everyone present speechless. Arrogant, yet so very real. If even Old Man Miller the widow was soundly defeated, what chance did Ignacio Cook stand? Jared Cook, you've damn well killed me. Bridger Davenport, suppressing acute pain, struggled incessantly in his chair. You know the group's rules better than I do. Now that you've caused this mess, don't fucking drag me down with you. His eyes bloodshot, he roared, spittle flying from his mouth. He had thought this was just Jackson's excuse to start a war, but could never have imagined that it was Jared Cook who had provoked this calamity. I'm really out of luck. Getting involved in this with you. Davenport turned around and sincerely looked at Julius Reed. Brother, debts are owed to creditors. Today, I was unaware of what was going on between you two and inadvertently aided him. I hope, brother, that you can give me a chance to make amends now that he understood the situation. He decided to do everything in his power to escape it. What do you think? How much is the worth of everyone in this warehouse at this point? Julius Reed added, including the Black Wind Bar. I need to check with our boss first. Bridger Davenport hesitated, then said, could you untie me first? Then I can contact the boss right away. Episode 55. Trading. Big Brother looking at Morris Yarrow's expectant face on the screen. Bridger Davenport felt bitter inside. How did it go? Was Aaron Jackson wiped out on the other end of the phone? A deep voice sounded. Big Brother, we took a beating. Bridger hung his head, his face etched with bitterness. The Three Blade Group's strategist and the manager of the Gonzales City branch had bungled the job on their own turf. Bridger himself couldn't accept such a result, and accompanying them had been Noah Miller, one of the top 3 fighters within the group. Yet, they still lost, utterly and completely. What? Say that again. On the other side of the video call, Morris Yarrow's eyes revealed disbelief. Bridger, you little bastard, you dare jest with Big Brother? Speak up. Did we succeed or not? Subconsciously, he thought Bridger was joking with him. After all, how could they fail with Noah Miller, a heavy hitter of the Three Blade Group, having rushed to Gonzales City? Let alone, there had been no failure whenever Old Man Miller the Widow took action. Take a look for yourself. Bridger turned the camera to show the Three Blade Group members groaning in pain on the ground. Jared Cook tied to a chair, Noah Miller lying half dead on the floor, and Julius Reed standing with a smile on his face, hands clasped behind his back. Lastly, he pointed the camera at his own broken leg, the blood having soaked his trousers and even stained his shoes. The opponent was too strong. We did our best. Bridger sat back down in the chair, weakly smiling and saying, I'm sorry for letting you down. In the screen, Morris Yarrow's face was ashen, his heart reeling like a stormy sea. After a short silence, he spoke up. Who did it? Aaron Jackson is strong, but he's not capable of this. Morris well knew Noah Miller's combat prowess. Otherwise, he wouldn't have spent a fortune to enlist the old demon. As Aaron Jackson's old rival, he had probed Jackson's strength before. While Jackson might not be inferior to Miller, the idea that he could reduce Miller to this state was impossible. Not to mention who would have the edge in a fight. If Miller wanted to flee, nobody could stop him. At least, nobody he knew of could stop him. Boss Yarrow thinks too little of me, Aaron Jackson. But you guessed right. My brother was the one who took action. Aaron Jackson snatched the phone and greeted Morris in the screen. Boss Yarrow, you really do remember to eat but not the thrashings. Last time I made you crawl out like a dog. Do you plan to end up like a dead dog this time? Shut up. Struck on a sore point, Morris Yarrow roared like an outraged lion, angrily shouting, Aaron Jackson, leave some leeway in life. Speak. What are your terms? The exchange between the two was heard crystal clear by the members of the Three Blade Group in the warehouse. Even Bridger was slightly taken aback, before an expression of sudden realization dawned on him. Reflecting on the past interactions between Morris Yarrow and Aaron Jackson, and considering the subsequent actions, he seemed to grasp the kind of deal that had taken place between the two men. Now, when he looked at Aaron Jackson, his gaze carried something different. 10 billion. Hearing the other side start to negotiate, Julius Reed blurted out, if the Three Blade Group dared to trouble them, they had to pay a price. Who are you on the other end of the phone? Morris Yarrow's brow furrowed, speaking with a hostile tone. Is this how Aaron Jackson teaches his employees? No sense of decorum at all. When bosses are talking, it's not your place to interrupt in the group. Status was of utmost importance. Only the bosses were entitled to converse. Other employees could only stand aside. The cause of today's incident is that your Three Blade Group has offended my brother. Aaron Jackson shrugged slightly with a spectator's expression on his face. Julius Reed may be the young master of the 10,000 Mountain Alliance, but he's merely an employee, not even significant enough to be considered a brother. Yet he dares to call himself the elder brother, but in front of outsiders, he could not reveal this secret. Boss Yarrow, when I, Aaron Jackson, do things, I have my reasons. Today's incident was purely to vent anger for my brother, so I won't interfere with your negotiations. It was clear from Aaron Jackson's words that the decision-making power today was not in his hands. And Morris Yarrow obviously didn't know who Julius Reed was, but he was equally certain of one thing. Anyone who could defeat Noah Miller was by no means simple. And so young, too. He looked to be just over 20. How terrifying. What exactly is going on? How did I provoke this young brother? Morris Yarrow sensed something was amiss. He had been struggling against Aaron Jackson for 3 years and had come to understand him somewhat. Although they were opponents, he had to admit, Aaron Jackson could be described as open and above board. When this incident occurred, Morris Yarrow subconsciously thought that Aaron Jackson couldn't hold back and wanted to monopolize Gonzales City. But now it seemed there must be other reasons. Big brother, Jared Cook took on a bounty behind your back to kill this brother. As a result, Ignacio Cook went to handle the task and died, which made this brother turn his anger on us. Bridger Davenport shouted into the phone. Under someone else's roof. He had no choice but to sacrifice a pawn to save the king, offering up Jared Cook to save himself. What? Give the phone to Jared Cook. Hearing Bridger Davenport's words, Morris Yarrow was startled and then turned furious. Now, hearing that his branch manager had accepted a bounty in secret and brought disaster upon the group, how could he not be angry? Jared Cook, I have always been good to you, with millions in bonuses each year. Are you still not satisfied? Morris Yarrow roared furiously. You not only violated the group's regulations but also brought shame to our group. Sent your colleagues from the branch office to their deaths. Jared Cook bowed his head, his eyes full of despair. As the manager of Gonzales City, he knew what he was facing. Young brother, now that you've injured so many people, we should be even. Right? Morris Yarrow was very angry, but his primary task was to rescue his people trapped in Gonzales City. Let my people go, and I won't pursue today's matter any further. We both step back. How does that sound? 10 billion. Not a penny less. Or you can come collect the bodies. Julius Reed shook his head, not paying attention to his words at all. Kid, don't overreach yourself. Morris Yarrow gritted his teeth. If you want to stand up to my three-blade group, you better weigh your own strength first. Collect the bodies, Julius Reed said flatly, slowly walking towards Bridger Davenport. 10 billion. Give me your account number. Morris Yarrow yelled through gritted teeth. He had no choice but to submit. You have 30 minutes. Julius Reed took out a black card from his pocket and recited the card number to Morris Yarrow. I hope you keep your word. After finishing his sentence, Morris Yarrow hung up the video call, grinding his teeth.